Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Liz said, my name is Laura, and I am both a programs manager at the USO and a military spouse. And that's why I'm so thrilled today to introduce this brand new virtual series. Being an Army spouse, I've been through my fair share of deployments, but not just deployments, extended TDYs, crazy training schedules, and even some third shift action with COVID. I know military families joining us today and around the world go through not just these types of separations, but even extended ones like unaccompanied tours, geo bachelor assignments, and just in general, spending a lot of time separated from their loved ones. That's why the USO is so thrilled to partner with Corie and Matt Weathers to talk about how to keep your marriage and family unit together despite distance apart. Corie and Matt are a dynamic duo. They are an incredible military couple with an extensive background in counseling. They're also preparing for their own deployment coming up soon. And we are so honored that they have chosen to spend some of their pre-deployment and deployment days with us to talk about not just how we can use their own experience to help us with our own periods of separation, but they're also going to be providing us with a real authentic view of their military marriage and how they are able to survive and thrive throughout their deployment. So with that, I want to give a very warm welcome to Corie and Matt and say thank you for sharing your time with us today. We're excited to begin the series.
Hey, Laura, thank you so much. Laura and I have had such a really good time over the last few months talking about this series and trying to think through what could we do that would maybe make an impact and encourage you guys, no matter what stage of life you're in, no matter where your family is. We've got so many people from Japan and Missouri and Virginia. And so put in that chat box where you guys are coming in from and what you're watching from. But we're just really excited to do maybe something a little bit different and share with you guys a little bit about our journey and what we're going to be going through over the next few months, and hopefully find a way to encourage you guys well and make it interactive. So my name is Corie. Thank you to Liz in the box, who's kind of shared a little bit about us as a couple. I am a licensed professional counselor and specialize in working with couples, military couples and first responder couples who also go through deployments and military initiated separations. And so we are no different. We're a military couple too. And so you want to share what you do?
Oh, I'm a chaplain, and I can't believe I get to do the job because we love you guys. You are our family, you're our community. Your success is our greatest joy. Mm-hmm. And we get to practice things here in our house with our boys, within our family, to test it out, to see whether or not it actually works before we can actually bring it to the community and say, hey, this is something, it's a method, it's something we've tried. It's a way of focusing, way of framing a problem that works for us. So it's just a joy to be able to pour into you. I know you, Laura, I'm still figuring out everybody's names. Yeah. Laura said that, she was grateful for us to be able to spend the pre-deployment time, but truthfully and honestly, we just love being part of the community and pouring into the community. So it's our joy. So, yeah.
So we are super excited to talk tonight about kind of that, we're calling it the tension before you go. And so I would love, this is better when it's interactive, okay? So we would love for you guys to just really react to the things that we're talking about. I'm going to try to throw some questions out for you guys to be able to put in the chat. Like Liz said in the beginning, the Q&A box is a great place for you to ask specific questions. We're going to do the best we can to address some of the questions you've already written in. And keep in mind that this is going to be a whole series. This is just the beginning. So once a month, we're going to do this and share our experience and our journey. So we don't know what's going to happen, right? But
everybody's along for the ride.
It's along for the ride, right? But this is our third deployment, which many of you have deployed so many more times than we have. Some of you guys have gone through things that we haven't gone through. There's probably a few things that we've gone through that maybe some of you haven't. So this is what's great about this community, is that we all have the ability to learn from each other. And I have no doubt that there's a lot of wisdom in the room tonight, right? And so we want to hear from you guys as far as what works for you. If you're going through deployment, what you're learning as well. And so we're going to share that with you and share kind of what our experience is, especially the tension before he leaves. And talk through like, why is there tension and what's really going on in me and what's really going on in him. And hopefully that will be some things that you guys understand and are going through and make sense to you too. So a couple of things about the series before we jump into tonight's topic. So I love the fact that you guys have already shared where you're watching from. Again, what the chat is not recorded for later. So please feel free to open up as you feel comfortable. But I would love to know from you guys, just from the beginning, this whole idea, this concept of living apart and it being a military initiated, it's not something that we would choose as a family. It's not something we would choose for our marriage to live apart. And I was telling Matt earlier, you know, even though it's our third time, it's not our third time living apart because there's been TDYs, there's been trainings. I think you've been around for like, how many of my birthdays? I know you've missed like 9.
The first 5 birthdays in the military, I completely missed. The first 5 years on active duty, I was somewhere, TDY, deployed, training, all 5 Januaries. So yeah.
And then this will be another one.
Yeah,
right?
but you were saying, or you know, this is our 3rd deployment.
Yeah.
Other people have done deployments, but it becomes a part of life. It becomes a way of life to have these multiple deployments, TDYs, excursions, even if it's for a week. So we have to really conceptualize, what does it mean to actually consistently reintegrate? How do you stay close together when there are these periods of time where you're having to unplug? Whether that's going to the field for a week, 2 weeks, going to NTC or JRTC for a month or so, going on a rotation for 9 months, or just consistently going on TDYs like MCTP. I'm using Army language. I'll stay away from Army language.
We have a lot of Navy that are watching. So you guys are going out and you're going out to sea or you're going on exercises and there's not connection. So we're going to do our best to actually address as many of those kinds of different kinds of living apart as possible. But I do want to stress from the beginning that we are not talking about separation as a step before divorce. We are talking about when the military pulls you apart as a family and that you're not choosing this for your family, but you really want to figure out, how do we figure this out? So I know the very first deployment, I remember thinking, I said this on my Facebook Live earlier today. I remember thinking to myself, is this okay? Like, is this okay for a marriage to go through this kind of separation? Can a family make it? Like, is this going to permanently harm our kids or harm our marriage? And I remember thinking, I don't know how we're going to make that happen as far as keeping it strong. And so this is not something that we choose or want for our families, but it is the reality that we live in. And there's a lot of military families out there that have spent half of their marriage apart.
Yeah. And so
they add it up.
So knowing that, when we went into the first deployment, the second deployment, we wanted to be a lot more intentional, which is where a lot of this content is really birthed out of. Is we knew from the first deployment with when you're having that time away, your communication becomes kind of stilted. Can we go ahead and jump into like this? I don't know.
Yeah, actually, let's hold on that. I do want to make sure we cover really quick. You guys should have gotten a listening guide in your email. So I encourage you guys to open it up, maybe print it off where you can take some notes. We're going to be kind of going through that to give you kind of a way to apply what we're talking about in real time and how it hits you personally. So just very quick, I wanted you to hear about what you can expect from the series as a whole. First of all, this is not just for military spouses. This is for service members too. This is about, it's not even about only marriage. It's about the family. So over the next few months, over the next 6 months or so, we are going to each webinar, Matt and I are going to share, even though he's going to be in a different location, we're going to work it out where we can do this webinar together. And we're going to be sharing how we're doing, what we're going through. We're going to do our best to be as authentic as possible with you guys. So if we're struggling, we're going to share that appropriately with you guys. Hopefully it will validate what some of you guys are going through as well, or what you have gone through.
We do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, we want to normalize your experience so you don't feel like you're an oddball. And the second thing is we want to be able to kind of share it and then to work through it. Once you can normalize something and validate it, then you can actually approach it for what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to see us each series or each monthly webinar, you're going to see us share kind of where we're at and how we're doing. Let's see, they're all virtual like this. It's going to be exactly like this, where you can chat in the Zoom and give us questions, interact with what we're saying. We can feed off of that together. So it's going to be interactive. It is going to have a listening guide, just like this one, for each webinar that we do, and it's going to be topical. So while tonight we're covering that tension before the family separates, I can tell you November's topic is going to be after you separate. Like, how do you find your battle rhythm? How do you kind of pick yourself up and move forward? What is that like on both sides? I'm definitely going to be sharing I'm not going to be just sitting in front of the camera, like bawling my eyes out, but I am going to be kind of authentically sharing what I know a lot of us spouses go through. And so it's really meant for both sides. We really want this. So if you listen to this and you know service members that would benefit, or maybe they're deployed or they're out somewhere where you can share this series with them, we hope you will. Otherwise, I think I've covered everything. They are recorded. They'll be available on the USO website where you can watch them as you go. So that's the gist of the series. If you guys have more questions, please put them in the chat box. And if we're not seeing them, somebody from the team is going to respond to them for sure. And I think we're just going to jump in now because you were so excited to jump in. You probably don't remember.
Go back to the thing. Yeah. So the second deployment, we wanted to go into it with intentionality, and we also wanted to pour into the community, into the unit we were serving with at the time. So we came up with our own curriculum, and it really was an opportunity for us to work on our marriage together and then provide the same sort of stuff we were using and we were creating and using to the unit we were with. And then out of that, we came up with a few phrases because we realized, in our communities, you exist on mission and vision statements and phrases that actually pull you forward, sometimes push you forward. And so we came up with, Team Weathers, get better every day. One that was make it count. If we're going to have these separations, we don't want to just put a pause button on our families. We actually want to grow through it. So how am I individually going to get better when I'm away from the family? And then in what way can I pour into the family from an alternate location so that I can actually kind of grow them and encourage them, and then be excited for the new people that we're all going to meet when we all reintegrate, that will be better versions of ourselves. And so we had get better every day. We had
make every day count.
Make it count.
Make it count.
Make it count. What was it? Go team.
Go team.
And then we were so tired at that point. And some of y'all know this, so tired from my former football days. We're like fourth quarter, and we thought it was fourth quarter. We're like in 22nd quarter at this point because the game never stops.
I'm just wondering, is there anybody else out there who experiences a level of exhaustion from the military lifestyle? Like you think things are like wrapping up and the next season's going to be like wrapping up, and then COVID hits, right? Yeah. And then like for us, we PCS, right? And then we're coming up on a deployment, right? Yeah. And so life has a way of happening, and the military has a way of also changing things. We even went through your deployment date changing on us. And so I've seen a lot of yeses, like, yes, you've been in a place of exhaustion where you think like, we just got to cross the finish line. And then you realize we got to muster up enough strength to actually.
So when I hit those places of exhaustion, specifically for me, when I was counseling soldiers, and I think I was like on the, like 290, I was like 3 days before my R&R, which I took at, day 300 during the first deployment. And I got to the point, I was so exhausted. I was like, I don't feel like I can counsel anymore. I was just trying to be honest with myself, with my sergeant major. And I was like, Rob, I don't feel like I have it in me. And, I had to think of, who would I want for my sons if they were deployed? And so part of moving through this place of exhaustion and constantly having to adapt is to figure out for yourself what is going to pull you forward. What's going to, when you're talking about when we finally make that split and you go on your mission and I go on my mission, what are those missions going to be, and how are those missions going to continually pull us forward? The other part of it is, and somebody shared it on Twitter, Lieutenant Colonel Stevens, in Korea. And so he put on there on his Twitter feed that how wonderful it was that the day you leave is both the saddest and the happiest day, because it's sad because you're turning away from one family and then you're turning to face the other family. So it's tears, it's goodbyes, it's this gut-wrenching thing, but then you turn and then somebody's picking up your rucksack and they're picking up your A and B bags and they're cracking a joke as you walk off to turn towards another mission. And you got to see this during your deployment of the impact that being on purpose, on mission means for separation.
Yeah. And so I think that's going to be definitely some of the things that we talk about, is how we both individually define what moving forward looks like. Because, you know, I could almost hear what you're saying, and I can feel the military spouses out there going, that's great for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But what about me? Right. And so there is the importance and the intentionality behind us at home deciding what our mission will be.
Yeah.
And that we have to decide what we're going to do to pick ourselves up and move forward on something, right? And it can't be like a huge part of our mission. For those of you who do have children, a lot of times that includes the kids, but that can't be the only thing that we're about. We have to have a level of our own personal growth and our own thing that we're looking forward to, that we get excited about. So we're going to talk about that probably in November. Okay. So I see some of you guys are already identifying with, yes, the tension and the exhaustion. So that's a little bit of what you guys can at least look forward to. And this series is kind of like our way of coming together on a project where we can work together on something, even though we're separate. Now, that may not be something that you guys are doing, but it's something that you guys can begin to talk about. Like, what is that thing? Even if you are apart from your spouse and don't have a lot of connectivity, what is that thing that you can be doing individually that's also together, so that you're both individually growing and growing together? So this project that we're doing, this monthly series that we're going to be doing with you guys, in a lot of ways holds us accountable to grow, right? It holds us accountable to work harder on a relationship. We're going to have those tough conversations of, we better figure this out, because we got the USO series coming up, and we got to figure out what we need to not only know what we need, but also how can we use that to encourage you guys as well. So picking that project is going to be super important. So and
I'm also seeing in the chat strands of not wanting to come across exhausted, not wanting to look stressed, not wanting to admit you're stressed, or being honest. We really hope that this project will allow you and give you the permission to just be honest. I mean, you can't actually deal with anything unless you honestly diagnose it and really face it head on. So as we model vulnerability and transparency within a marriage relationship, we've been married 21 years, through distance, we hope that it empowers you and your family and your spouse to be able to be honest without being destructive, to be able to correctly articulate and clearly articulate what it is that you're experiencing, what you're thinking, and what you're feeling. Be able to articulate that with your spouse, and then for that to be a point for the two of you to grow closer. Sometimes just being honest and vulnerable is not sometimes, it's always the beginning point for growing closer. So if you're going to grow closer when there's physical distance, you have to have that honesty within yourself first, and then with your spouse, your partner. Yeah.
And maybe this was the comment that you were reflecting on, Matt, when you said that. But a couple of you have already mentioned that it's hard to, and we're going to get into this with the tension, right? And why is there tension before we spend that time apart? But that it can be hard to show that you're exhausted. It can be hard to show that you're struggling. It can be challenging in your relationship, because each person, and maybe we can get into it this way.
Yeah.
On your listening guide, I kind of put a very, very simple separation cycle that you guys can reflect on. And we're only going to be covering that pre-departure, detachment part of the cycle. But I wanted you guys to see that, because we're going to reference that a little bit throughout the series, and we'll bring it back as we go. But I think one of the ways that we can talk about, like, what is this tension that we go through before we have to be apart? And so I kind of want to go back to a couple of the comments that came through about it's really hard to show your exhaustion or show the tension that you're feeling internally if you feel like you're the backbone of the family, or you feel like you have to have it all together. And so I think that going back to your vulnerability, and I think that's kind of what Matt was trying to say, is, who are we fooling here, right? This is a difficult thing to do. And I get whoever wrote that, like, I feel that every day. Like, none of us want to be vulnerable and like say, I'm having a hard time with the whole thing, COVID, PCS, and deployment and teenage kids. Like, you know, I'm very vulnerable. I share that all the time with him, but it is hard to admit when you're struggling. But when I say, who are we fooling? What I mean by that is this is our spouse. This is the person that we've said we're going to do life with. This is our helpmate. And that means that they're there to help us through it. Like, there is some element, a couple of you guys were asking, like, well, how do I like figure out what that thing is for me to help me move forward? And we'll talk about that in November. But I mean, there is that element of we have to figure out on our own how we, at the end of the day, kind of muster up the courage to stand back on our 2 feet. There is that independent choice that we have to make. But if we find ourselves in our marriage on a parallel track, you know, that's not ever intersecting, and we're not like leaning on each other for support, if we're not being honest with each other where we're at, then we're almost not giving the marriage the opportunity to do what it's there to do, which is supposed to support each other. So we can try to be strong all day long, but at the end of the day, this is hard, guys. Like, any kind of separation like this is going to be difficult.
I'm going to deal with the cat.
So we have a cat that wants to be in here with us. So he's just going to go let her in. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit. You guys tell me, I want to see in the chat thread, tell me where you feel like, if you've gone through this tension before going apart, where is the tension coming through for you? I'm going to go through the chat a little bit. I see, I'm going to try to only mention the ones who have made it public for everyone to see, but I see spouses hide a lot while their service member is deployed. Let's see. So there's a lot of conversation about hiding what we're really feeling. I don't want him to know my stress. We're going to talk about what Matt, he's going to speak for the service member's perspective of what it's like before he leaves and what they're going through that sometimes we're afraid to say out loud. And I'm also going to share kind of my side as well. And I'm not going to get into this too heavy because I really want us to be able to share from where we can speak to it the best, Matt and I. But I did have the opportunity in 2015 to travel with the Secretary of Defense overseas and see deployment conditions. And I had like a very small window of time for just a moment. I got to experience the excitement of being able to go and do something that asked something really big of me and to go see places I had never seen before. And like a lot of military spouses say all the time, like, I want to go somewhere fun. I want to go do I want to escape the home, like just for a moment. Like, I want to go and do this thing, to which your reply is always,
yeah, until you go there.
Yeah. Or sure, let me set up a bug net for you outside and let you sleep outside in the cold.
You want to go sleep in a cave?
Yeah. That's always the response, right? But there is that feeling of like, man, you're getting to go do this thing. And so I got, just for a moment, I had this glimpse of being able to see and experience the excitement of wanting to go, and yet the extreme guilt of like, I don't want to leave. Like, I don't want to leave my family, or could this be dangerous? Or what does this mean for me to go? And so I had that moment for just a moment to experience that push and pull. And I will tell you, I'm just going to say this to kind of launch us off here. Yeah. One of the best things that you did for me in that moment was, number one, you told me, like, pay attention to those feelings, because that's what a lot of service members are feeling before they go, is that push and pull. It is that excitement that you talked about of like wanting to kind of about face and be on mission.
Let's do the job.
That you've been wanting to do and
absolutely
being trained to do the whole time. Right. And I remember you saying, take note of that. But then he came to me like the next day. You look like you're scared of what I'm saying.
No.
You just don't remember maybe. But he came to me the next day and he said, I want you to know I released you to the mission. I want you to know it's okay for you to be excited about what you're about to go do. And it's okay for you to be excited. And it's okay for you to also feel like you're in two places at once. And I'm okay with that with you. And I remember in that moment going, oh man, I wish I would have done that for you. Because I didn't do that for him. I didn't understand that that's what he needed, was the permission to be excited to go do the job that he had been training to do. And that he could be in two places at once.
Yeah, but we also have to feel the freedom, if you don't feel that, to not have to say that, to not expect yourself to go and try and, I don't want to say lie, but, you know, misrepresent how you're feeling. When you get to a place of honesty and vulnerability, you should be able to say, hey, this is, you know, I'm not great with it this time.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's a TDY, whether it's going to the field, whether it's being gone for a month or however, I'm not great. And we each need to own our own feelings, to own our side of the street, and to allow the other person to feel those things and not feel like there's something bad. I've talked to and have felt it myself, this sense of, if she were to bring up more problems, or the kids were to bring up more problems with me leaving, then I couldn't handle that, you know? And so I imagine sometimes you may feel like, well, I'm not going to bring that up right now because I feel like they may not be able to handle that, and I don't want to burden them with that. Or I may not want to bring something up and burden her with that. And so we start to begin to, during the pre-departure, pre-departure phase, you start to kind of bottle those things up and try and wear a more brave face, rather than go, I'm kind of having a hard time this time for X, Y, and Z reasons. Maybe it's a different season in life. Maybe it's a different community and it's not as supportive. Or you feel disconnected. You just moved. I don't know, maybe you're in the middle of a global pandemic and you just can't have those touch points with humans that you normally do. And so you're feeling that level of isolation. And then for someone to depart while you're feeling that isolation can make you feel that much more isolated and alone. And so we should experience the freedom to be able to say that. If you were to say that to me and say, I'm having a really hard time this time with you going away, and for me to not feel bad about it. Like, I'm not doing this to you.
Right.
This isn't, you know, and at the same time, it's also a part of a choice that we have both made and that we have to accept together. And
I think the struggle is that where do you then put those feelings, right? Like, because you don't want to take it out on your spouse, because like you said, you're not doing it to us, right? Yeah. And so I think for spouses, it's like, but I don't like it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't like that I'm going to have to do this really difficult thing. And so where do I take that out on, you know? And so in my book, Sacred Spaces, I talk a lot about that resentment that builds up over time. And a lot of that resentment is because we don't know where to place the resentment. If we put it on our spouse, then we create the conflict. And so I think for me, I've just had to remind myself that this is that choice that we've made and that we can do difficult things. And that I can be mad at the military because I don't like the fact that they changed the dates on us, which is going to make our life, even my life especially, a little bit more complicated than I originally planned. I planned everything around the initial time.
Yeah. So you get to have those negative feelings. I remember specifically when you were going away on your trip, we were walking around DC and I could kind of look in her eyes, like she was like, what have I gotten myself into? And we're just keeping both the boys occupied at that time because they were young. And I looked at her and I was like, hey, today you get to be small. Okay. Be as small as you want. All right. Feel all your bad feelings, feel all your negative vibes, whatever. But tomorrow you've got to get big. Yeah. Tomorrow you have to kind of really grow into this. So it's taking that time. It's one thing to have a negative thought. It's a whole nother thing to live there for a while.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
So I love when he does that for me, and he'll, on days that I'm really struggling, he'll be like, are you feeling small today? And that's his cue to me that I get to have not the Corie that does Mill Spouse Fest or the Corie that does the USO series, or that, you know, like, can I just be his wife that's just really having a difficult time, you know, and just.
Sometimes you even want to be smaller and you're like, can I just be Corie and just away from everybody in the quiet because she's an introvert.
Yeah. Like, can I struggle today? Can I like be mad at the military? Can I be like insecure about my ability to go through this deployment with teenage boys and like all of that insecurity and questions and all that. And that's his cue of like, I see that you feel like you need that support and need to be small today. So I guess my question for you is, can a spouse do that with a husband?
What do you mean?
Like if I came to you, like, you know, that insecurity, that like that fear of leaving, Is that, how would like female to male, how to wrestle with the feelings of your fears of like being away from the boys, and like how can I'm going to stereotype here just for a second, but how can a wife best speak to a husband's heart and whatever it is that you're wrestling through? Because something tells me that that's not going to go as well if I come to you like, do you feel like you need to be small today? Like, what is it that
so we love Brene Brown, and this is what triggers this thought for me. Is there was one aspect when Brene was talking on her TED Talk, and she said that she was doing a book signing, and a guy came, and he was standing in line, and he was one of the only males in line getting a book signed. And as she was signing it, he said, this is all great, and you say that females can be vulnerable. And he was like, but sometimes I feel like my wife and my daughters would rather see me die on top of the white horse than fall off of it. So to answer that question, you have to create a space of vulnerability in your marriage. You have to be able to talk about difficult things. And so a lot of people are listening that you're not in a pre-departure or detachment phase, and you may not even have that coming up for a while. The best thing you can do right now is to go, how do I create a space and a place of vulnerability where my spouse can detail their insecurities. When I'll say my serving spouse for right now. Okay, we'll use that phrase.
We say supporting spouse and serving spouse.
Yeah, so the serving spouse can actually come up there and say, hey, I'm feeling like, I feel like I've got imposter syndrome. Like I'm just figuring this job out and I don't have no clue what I'm doing. And people are looking to me for answers. And I'm trying to live into the roles and responsibilities that have been given to me. But I feel like I'm just one day ahead of the rest of the pack, and I'm just making it up as I go and really just swinging for the fences and hoping that I get at least, I'm batting 500 at best. To create that place in that space of vulnerability, go, okay, yeah, I can hear that and I can detail that. And I want to encourage these serving spouses, take that time and invest in the vulnerability of your home to be able to come to your spouse and even your kids, and to acknowledge, if you've got kids, when you're not doing well. You don't need to bleed all over them, but you do need to be honest so they can see an adult that is struggling with life and coming up and trying to come up with the right answers of how they're doing life, how they're approaching their job, how they're approaching their relationships. So to answer that question, I would say you've got to create, and that's why we're doing this place in this space of vulnerability. You've said a couple of times about how you've been mad at the military. Well, the military is just trying to answer the mail and trying to answer the big questions for the grand chaos that is going on globally. So really, it's not being mad at the military.
It's the rest of the world.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, in all honesty, we're looking at a world in chaos right now, probably this year more than ever. And because none of us are in control and none of us really have influence to that kind of level, and we all feel powerless, we all feel that much more anxiety and fear. And we're only going to take that out on places that are like tangible, like you're right there. I can take my anxiety and my fear out on you. You're going to represent that. Or you put on the uniform and guess what? You represent the organization that's trying to address that chaos and trying to address that anxiety and that fear. And because there are unknowns with all of that, we get that much more anxious and afraid. So let's deal with our anxiety and our fear, not by blaming other organizations or, things that are out there, but bringing it into this safe space, tree of trust, and really talking about it,
No, I love that.
Is that too grand and esoteric?
No, I'm going to take the tree of space. It's going to be part of the series.
So tree of space. All right. So if you're going to go along in the series with us, just want to prepare you. She's wonderful. She's perfect in so many ways, but she does this cool thing where she takes one metaphor or one phrase and then combines it with a different phrase. It's actually, I forgot what the word is, but it's actually a diagnosable thing.
It'll eventually become tree of trust.
Well, no, it would become, no, because you won't get to tree of trust. You're like, if it's too hot in the kitchen, don't play the piano. And you're like, those don't go together. Why are you trying?
So true, guys. So here's what I'll say to kind of wrap up. This is Matt and I obviously have our own language for speaking to each other. You guys have your own language for speaking to each other, and we're always working on that. So while Matt can say to me, do you feel small today? Right. Yeah. I can go to Matt. I feel like I can go to you and I can say, hey, I really see that, you're getting ready to leave the boys and that there's some fear there and you're going to really miss them. And I just want you to know we're going to be okay. And then it's going to be okay. Like there's things that I know I can speak directly to his heart because we're doing the best that we can to be open and honest on that. So anything else that you want to share about maybe the service spouse's perspective on maybe why is there that tension? But I mean, we've definitely felt it over the last couple of weeks and, and we're going to have some more, I'm sure, but like, what have you been going through?
Well, there's being so busy up until the point of departure.
Yeah. Cause I saw a few people were like getting ready.
As you begin to transition over into that point of departure, for the serving spouse, you've been very busy with work and all the things that are there. And you honestly sometimes take the home and the family for granted because you're doing life, you're going to work, you're knocking that out. And then you finally realize, wow, there's the sand in the hourglass over the days of our lives. And you realize, wow, the time's getting short. Have I poured in as much to my family as I needed to, or as I wanted to? Did I seize every opportunity? Because when you don't have an upcoming departure happening, you're like, I get around to that different time.
Friday,
yeah. Saturday comes around. You're like, I really need this Saturday to myself. I really need this downtime. And you justify it. Well, then when you can count your Saturdays on one hand, you're sitting there going, okay, what do I need to do this Saturday to prepare them? Because you're planning, you're trying to prepare them for success. So you're all in and trying to make sure that you get everything done. And so you go from being very focused at work stuff to being very focused at home stuff as you're trying to make sure you're set up for success. So that's part of the internal tension that's happening is like, did I do everything for work? Did I do everything from home? Because I know as soon as, I hit that plane, as I hit that boat, I'll be able to then really focus on other things and have a little bit more time. Yeah.
As much as you could.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think for me, I don't know how you guys feel about this, but, and we'll go through, I'm trying to keep track of what everybody's writing. And I love, by the way, that you guys are validating each other. And so I see a few questions in here. So you can kind of also look through this too. But I feel like as soon as you started to like get the house ready and like I felt him kind of come home, that's when it got real for me. Like I think I was in denial until like he was like, now I'm going to turn my focus and start getting things ready. And I don't know about, the other support spouses out there, but there is like this kind of mutual, like this several feelings at once. There's the feelings of like thankfulness and gratitude of like, there's so many things he's thinking of that I would not have thought of, or like, one of like our first deployment, I never replaced the air filter. And that like, he was like, you can't do that. So like,
thank goodness for Amazon Prime because that stuff gets delivered now.
He has like, it's now on a schedule, but like one of those things that like, I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this before, but we were going to sit down and talk about like, what are the things that I feel like would be helpful for you to do before you go. And so like one of the things that I know is going to be really helpful is for him to like put in my calendar, like some of those things that I might forget, especially around the house.
Clean the lint filter in the dryer.
There's just another one.
Filters. Just filters in general. Just need to put the word filters on every wall in the house. So she's constantly thinking, where are all the filters and what should I do with them?
I want to know from you guys, is there anybody else that like, you have a thing that you just forget all the time? Like, what is your thing? Maybe it's just me. I'm hoping it's not, but is there an area of like household management that you always just kind of just don't remember?
Yeah.
But here's the other thing that sticky notes and poster boards. I love it. My husband started changing light bulbs and I just started crying because I knew time was coming, right? Like you feel it. Filters, probably the filters. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is it Shawnee? Thank you for validating that I'm not the only one. So smoke alarms. Oh yes. Keep them coming, guys. Cause this is validating my experience as well. No, but I think there's also this feeling of, and I'm wondering if anybody else feels the same way, that I'm simultaneously grateful and thankful and want you to do those things. And then there's also a little part of me that's like, I got it. I'm already starting to like make a mental checklist of the things that I'm going to start taking on, and not wanting you to feel like you have to do all those things, like light bulbs, right? Like somebody brought up light bulbs. Like if a light bulb goes out, I can put in a light bulb, like it's going to be okay. Like, or, so I don't want to stop you from doing those things, because it has purpose for you to do those things. But there's also, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe you guys can chime in, but it's almost that creep of control that we as support spouses start to take on, the control that we know is going to happen, where we have to manage it all. And
you don't want me to just kind of drop it one day and be like, well, all yours, bye. Yeah.
Well, it's that. And there's also, those of you especially who are going through rapid deployments or rapid, lots of time apart, you kind of are constantly reintegrating, constantly like having to take on that control. And maybe you already have a battle rhythm of how you handle things. And so you have already planned on how you're going to take care of that, or that's not the area of need that you feel like is the most helpful or productive. Maybe you guys can share a little bit of that in here too. But I think that's a little bit of what's going on too. So let me see. Auto pay all the utilities. Great tip. Everybody's like, yes, auto pay. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of yeses. I don't know where all the yeses came from.
Oh, no.
Oh, maybe that was in the very beginning of my thing. I was like, what was that response to?
How did I scroll all the way to the top?
I don't know. Okay. So don't forget, in the question and answer, that's for a private, if you definitely have a question that you want us to address, that you can do it in there too. So let's talk a little bit more about, because we're going to give some specific time to go through some of the questions that you guys have addressed. And I want to make sure I address those. But let me just kind of give me a second. And technology has really changed, right? And so the connectivity is going to be different than it was, I know, for us for sure before. Some of you guys don't have that ability to have that. So I know that's definitely a challenge. I think it's even more of a challenge when you know the technology is there and yet you're not going to be able to use it, and you're going to have to stay disconnected. Okay, let me see if there was any questions. Is this resonating with you guys? So I want to hear from you guys. Like, do you guys experience, or have you experienced the tension? And usually the tension turns into, because there's all of this. I know there was another topic I was going to bring up on the tension thing that I'm already seeing in us. Is there is definitely the spend as good of quality time together as much as possible before you go. Like, so we're already having those date days and date nights and and you feel that pressure to like make it as perfect as possible, or that you're as present as possible, which I think puts a lot of pressure on the relationship and on each other. But I just want to like time out here for a second and say, this is one of those areas that we could complain about and say is such a negative thing. But I just want to point out some of the great things it actually does for your relationship, right? We need to acknowledge that and see, this is something that maybe there are civilians out there that spend time apart too due to work. But this is one of those areas that's actually really healthy too. Like, one of the things that it teaches us as military couples is how to filter a little bit more, how to be more protective of our time together. Let me give you like just kind of a very small example. Halloween is right around the corner. You spent all day today working on our son's costume. That's just important to our son. And I knew a lot of what was behind that was like, you know what, I'm going to be leaving soon. And so this is something I can do while I'm here. I'm not working, so I can go and do that now.
I know how to sew.
And one thing about Matt is that he loves to make things excellent. Like, he loves to be, and it's your gift to them too. Like, you don't want him to have a shabby costume. So he is going to do everything he can to like make sure that he is proud of this costume. And I think a little bit of element of surprise while you were at school. I invested in you and in your costume. So I think that was there too.
And I don't want to have to deal with your bad attitude if you have a bad costume. So, it helps me.
But there was like this part that I wanted to come downstairs, and I almost did it. I came into the garage today and I was like, do we really need to go to like an 11 of perfection here? And I wanted to like, and it was, I'm sure that it either did come across as criticism or could have come across as criticism. And in my heart, it was more protective and preservation of
Mhm.
like, I was trying to manage, which is not really a good thing in marriage. When you find yourself managing each other's
Mhm.
emotions, it's kind of dangerous territory because it
Yeah.
never really goes well. And that was my mistake. I was almost like managing your emotions because I was trying to be protective of like, it's okay that he
Mhm.
doesn't have the perfect costume. It's okay for you to not feel like you have to spend all this time on this, and he'll be fine with whatever costume he has. And, and that was managing you.
Mhm.
And there was also a moment where I was gonna like maybe take that a step further and say like, just let him come home and do his own costume. And that really would have come across critical, but
Mhm.
I filtered some
Mhm.
level of that and was like, you know what? If this is how he wants to spend his day, if this is how he wants to
Mhm.
show love before he goes, I'm just going to step away and filter what maybe I normally would have said, or maybe what could have
Mhm.
turned into an argument, because he gets to decide how he wants to spend his day, right?
Mhm.
Like, why am I coming in there and trying to direct that for
But that's a
him?
two-way street, and that I don't think actually goes from service member to supporting spouse often, which
Mhm.
is how often in the pre-departure phase, get back to your little
Oh yeah.
wheel of stuff.
Wheel of stuff.
How often in the pre-departure phase do supporting spouses actually are you allowed to go, okay, what do you need? Like
Yeah.
take a couple of days and decide what do you need for yourself. And it may you shouldn't feel bad if what you need is to go spend time with some friends that you're not going to be able to spend that close quality time with, and allow me to stay here. So there's stuff that I have to do prior, but then
Oh,
I
that's a good
also
point.
I have to be grown up enough to say, you know what do you need and how are you going to take care of yourself before the departure happens?
Mm-hmm.
And we learned this early on, that it was very key for me to give permission for you to go grab cups of coffee, especially when the boys were little.
Yeah.
Of, hey, you look like you really need to unplug for about 4 hours. Go get some coffee and like walk somewhere. Or if you've really got to go into a tunnel with work, go get a hotel room, really get into a tunnel with work, figure out what you've got to write and be done with it, and then come back to the home, and then you're really clued into what's happening. So there's those opportunities that the service member has to give the supporting spouse. Allow that time, not just give permission, but encourage it, so that you don't feel guilty for doing that, for unplugging, because who you are when you come back is a totally better person.
That is such a great point. And
You're welcome.
I just want to talk
You should put that in your notes right there. You didn't, but.
Well, I will. Actually, it's a great point, because after each webinar, I will be going back and redoing the listening guide to have it be a little bit more closely with whatever we say in the webinar. So those of you who are watching this recorded later, it'll be a little bit more of a fuller listening guide. But this is such a great point that I really want to stress to the supporting spouses. So the military spouses that are not the ones that are leaving. And I know this is happening within me, and this is something that I think this is where the resentment tends to come from, right? Because the serving spouse comes home and takes maybe some, not always, we have a lot of people that deploy very quickly with short notice.
Yeah.
But if you have some level of notice, you have this ability to kind of take care of maybe the home, take care of yourself, figure out what you need before you go. And then they go. And then there's a lot of hurry up and wait, a lot of sitting around, a lot of self-care, a lot of being able to watch movies, a lot of, that kind of ice that has its own downfalls to it, right? We're going to cover that later.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what typically happens on the support spouse side, and I even caught myself doing that this week, was I had a friend that reached out to me that was like, hey, do you want to like go out for coffee or get together? And I found myself going, you know what, after he leaves, then we'll do that. But like right now, like it needs to be all us time, and then saving that for later. When if I save all of it for later, I'm not going to be in a good place when he goes. And so being able to communicate that to you, like, how do you feel about me taking care of myself a little bit too, and doing some of those things that you mentioned, and being able to figure out what you need.
So overall, I mean, what we're talking about, we're definitely talking about pre-departure, but going back to some things we said earlier, this should influence the way we live our lives, our marriages in general.
Yeah.
You made a good point about the fact that this allows us to really focus in on filtering our conversations, being more protective, not allowing little things to pop up and sabotage. If we live so much of our life taking things for granted, and then all of a sudden a departure comes up that was expected or otherwise, then we all of a sudden jump back into like, okay, now how do we make this perfect? Okay, because we got to live the next month or 2 months perfect because we got to make sure this really counts. But the 8 months prior to those 2 months, we were just kind of living willy-nilly on accident. And I remember seeing this in 2012 when with the Army, we switched an R4 gen cycle. And then we had some units that weren't deploying with the rapid back-to-back-to-back year-on, year-off deployments. And then by month 13, 14, we started seeing couples that were having issues. And it was because they had put them on the back burner for so long. So preparing for departure, for being away, you've got to begin with the end in mind, to quote a Covey thing, is that you've got to really starting now going, how do I become my best self now? And not just whenever there's a departure coming up. Yeah. But then also, if you're in the departure phase or you're right there and you're, your detachment has happened and you guys are already separated, who do you want to be when you get back together? Yeah. And so it's creating that mission and that vision for your best marriage, and living into that and using the right tools and relationships, whether that's counseling, to be able to become the best version of yourself so that when departures do happen, it doesn't throw you off your game. There's not so much catch up that you're trying to do. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And so, I the way my mind works is I figure out, people say balance is the key to everything. And a lot of people don't like the word balance. And so what I kind of have to do in my head is I go, okay, what are the two extremes, right? And if I can find what the extremes are, usually the extreme is destructive on some level, right? And so on one extreme, we have, being so vulnerable that we're not taking care of ourselves and we're just, so many emotions and neither one of us is like kind of standing on our own 2 feet and making good choices and, standing strong together and saying, this is something we've decided that we can do as a couple and we have to do it as a couple and finding that courage. So one extreme would be we're all an emotional mess and neither one is standing on their own 2 feet to kind of take some level of action. That's one extreme. Can we all agree that that would be destructive individually or in a relationship, right? So the other extreme
next time when you gesture with the extremes, do the bad extreme on that side and do the good extreme, because I'm staying on this side. So I want to be well represented. That's all. Okay. So bad extreme over there, good extreme over here.
Both extremes are not good.
Well, where do I stand then? In
the middle.
Okay.
In the middle is where we want to be. Okay. So the other extreme is not talking at all. So I saw there was a couple of questions in there where some of you were like, I feel like I'm trying to share some of this, but my spouse doesn't share it back. Right. So the other extreme would be, we're not being vulnerable at all. We're not sharing what we need. We're not being assertive to ask for what we need. We're just kind of like harboring everything and putting on, and this would be kind of one of the negative sides of what the military I see does for couples is that we put on our best face too much sometimes. And we're not really being real. Right. And so that's one of the things that we're going to try to do over the series is show how you can, as best as you can during a deployment, be vulnerable with each other and learn how to have sometimes even tough conversations with each other. And because there can be a danger of living on this extreme of hiding everything and just acting like everything is perfect and fine. Right. And then you get home and you try to reintegrate and now you can't hide like that all the time. And now you have too much that you've stuffed down.
Because over there grows, and I'm glad you were over there on that side, because that extreme grows resentment. And resentment is one of those killers of relationships. Once you begin to start resenting the other person, you may resent, their absence. But you then begin to like direct the resentment at them. When it started, I resent you being gone because I want to be close to you and I love you and I want to have a connected relationship with you. And then they're gone. All of a sudden I resent the fact that you're gone and we can't be as close and connected as I wish we could right now. And then all of a sudden you start to resent that person and start to blame that person and start to drive a wedge for thinking that, well, they represent something bad. And once that grows, it's really hard to stop it unless you're actually honest with it and begin to process it. And what you'll find when you process that resentment is that you had a lot of missed expectations. You had a lot of wrong expectations, and we're not really dealing in reality. We're having to probably grieve what we thought life could have or should have been, which every adult does, whether or not you're in the military or, 2020 has shown us, missed expectations. We're having to grieve a lot, not just with there's so much. Sorry, it just 2020 just really hit me all of a sudden. But when you start to grow that resentment, and you start to drive that wedge, you start to misplace all of your own feelings that you should have owned all along.
Yeah.
And it is hard to grow up and go, as we've had to explain to the boys with either the multiple moves, with the departures, changing friends, this is a life choice that we have made, and we enjoy a lot of aspects of it, even with all the difficulties.
That doesn't have to be a destroyer of our family and relationship.
Right. Actually, what it has been for us is it's challenged us to actually really go all in and really invest, because you recognize how much little time you actually have. So it becomes that much more precious. And so when time becomes precious, relationships become precious, you invest in them and you really go all in, you get so much more out of it. This really helps you see what matters and what's important. So the more you actually focus on the pros and not the cons, the more you will invest in the positives.
And that you can decide as a couple, this would be my challenge to you guys out there, is to decide as a couple that you will be there for each other, not to gloss things over in like a cheesy positive way when somebody's really having an emotional event, but when you agree together as a couple that I will be the person that reminds you of why we're doing this in the first place, when you're struggling, then that agreement helps in those moments where it's like, I am battling in my head today and I'm really unhappy with what we're having to go through. And I really need your words. I need you to speak truth into my life and remind me of why this doesn't have to be something that's as bad as it feels right now. But that agreement in advance is what keeps you from being defensive in that moment.
First thing I've got to do is I've got to hear you.
Yeah.
I've got to sit and listen and not try and solve it. I have to avoid spiraling into the shame of my chosen profession has brought this on the whole family. And look what my job has done to the whole family. I have to avoid that spiral, because then it becomes about me and not about what you're dealing with. And I have to avoid my own little shame spiral there. I've just got to allow her to have a bad moment, a bad day, a bad thought process, and sit with her long enough for you to begin to go, okay, but here's what I know to be true. Here's what I know that we've gone through that it has been good and beneficial. And then I can join her in that and really champion that. But you've got to sit in the pocket of discomfort long enough, knowing that you're going to come out on the other side. And then once you come out on the other side and you've done that together, that's a win that you have together that you build off of. It's a positive experience. And then when you're having more bad experiences, you flip back through that scrapbook and say, okay, but here's one where we did really well. And here we've got these several wins under our belt. We can do this. And that was one of our phrases at some point in time. We can do hard things. And we just looked at what we had gone through up to that point. And we're like, we can do this. And we were able to look at the boys and go, and you can do this too. I mean, you're going to go into this new school environment and you're going to kill it. You're going to be awesome. You're going to be phenomenal because you've done this so many times.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to go, how do I become better each time? To really cling to the adversity that this community and lifestyle brings, rather than try and run from it.
Well, and that's a perfect way of saying on this spectrum, if you will, that as long as you can find yourself in the middle somehow, we're going to find ourselves moving back and forth sometimes leaning to one extreme or the other.
Mhm.
But for me, the way that I kind of have to think in my mind is, what are the extremes? Because if I know what those extremes are, that's where it's going to be destructive. So I know I need to stand on my own 2 feet at some point, but I also need to be open and honest and vulnerable. I also need to invite him into opportunities where he can feel safe to tell me how he's doing and what he needs. And it's also up to him to decide whether or not he's going to share it with me. I know that there's a lot of you guys out there where you feel like your spouse is not opening up and sharing what they're going through, and you can't control that. You can't manage it for them, but you can be somebody that creates over time the safety of, I can handle whatever it is that you're feeling, even if that means you're really excited to go. I can hear that. And that doesn't mean that I have to go into this devastating place of, you don't love us and you're wanting to be away from us.
Right.
I want to be that person that can hold both of those. It says it's okay if you're worried or concerned about missing us, or you're missing time with me or the kids. And it's also okay for you to tell me that you're excited to go and do this thing. And honestly, I need to be excited about something too. I need to be excited about how I'm going to grow, what my goals are going to be. This is not just about him being excited to go and giving him the permission. I need to give myself the permission to be excited about something too. So as long as you can find those extremes and then figure out how to live somewhere in the middle and create opportunities for these conversations to happen, that's what we want to encourage you guys to do. That's what we're going to be trying to do, especially as in the days that we have left, to be able to actually go, how are you doing? Like, what do you need? Who can I best be for you today? And so we're going to get here in just a minute. We're going to, I see there's a question there of somebody's asking somebody else, what goals do you set? I want to hear from you guys. What goals do you set? Because you're going to help me come up with some goals too. So, okay, I want us to cover, you guys have brought up kids. And so we're going to cover a little bit about how kids handle the tension before you go. And then we're going to be a little bit more specific, if we can be, on like, what are we going to do with the tension, which I think is going to be really helpful for us to kind of talk that out and go, how are we going to handle this tension, so that we've already had a couple of those little arguments that happen just because there's too much pressure and tension going on, that somebody just finally just kind of snaps and it's like, it's too much. So hopefully we can avoid as many of those as possible, but we're going to talk through what we can do before he actually has to go. And then we're going to turn to the questions that you guys have turned in. And so please get any other questions that you guys, there's been a couple questions that I may have missed in the chat. So I know that the USO team, Laura is also, and Liz are both watching, and they'll be prepared for any other questions that I might have missed. But now's a really good time to start thinking about those as well.
So kids, the first thing I want to bring up, first 2 things, and I'm going to bring up regression and stages. So unless you want to talk developmental stages, like abstract and concrete, where they're at. So why don't you think about what you want to do when you talk about kids with abstract and concrete, and I'll just talk regression as well as framing.
Okay.
All right. So
many big words there.
There you go. All right. So I'm letting the wheels turn. Fully expect children to regress at some point during pre-departure phase. Really,
detachment, that beginning.
Any big life event that kids are going to go through, we fully expect there to be regression. And whether that is something like bedwetting, whether that's refusing to eat a food that they at one point in time absolutely loved, whether that is, becoming afraid or not wanting to sleep by themselves, of something where you're like, wait, how you've been fearless for how many years? Why are you now becoming afraid? And allowing that to happen and to encourage them, which is, I'll bring up framing in a minute, and how you can use framing to help the child understand their world a little bit better. But in that regression phase, what we see often is they're trying to regain control over a world that they recognize, that they acknowledge they don't have control over. And so they begin to act out, just like adults do. But adults, we tend to put a neat phrase on it, even though we start to act like kids sometimes too. So when they are regressing, it's not becoming frustrated. It's allowing yourself to, as a parent, to be patient, take a step back with them, and then join them where they were at, and then move forward patiently.
Reparent them.
Yeah, reparent them right through that. And so you get an opportunity through that reparenting to fix mistakes you probably made early on, but to allow them to experience what they experience without shame or without expectation. I know something that worked for our youngest son, who's always had control issues and a wonderful kid, was to not say, hey, this is what you're going to have, but to give him options. And whether it was 3 things that we knew were going to be options within reason, and to allow them to choose that one option gives them that opportunity to go, okay, all right, within this scope of options or, variety, I can make this choice, and therefore I have a little bit of control over my world. And so that's kind of helping framing. Now, framing is that opportunity I want to point out. So if you've seen Corie's pictures, she's a bit of a Wonder Woman fan, right? And so there are typical colors that go along with Wonder Woman-ness, right? And blue and red are definitely some of those. Okay, so we've got the autographed pictures of Gal Gadot and then Linda Carter. You're welcome. That was my gift to her when I pinned on Major. But then I got this other one that I found that was offered online. It's this Daily Planet picture. And when we went to go get it framed, we had to pick out the right frame and the right border to go around the picture because we wanted to accentuate the picture. So when you actually go and pick out a good frame for a picture, what you're wanting to do is draw the best out of that photo or that drawing. What do you want to draw people's eye towards? So it's not just a matter of the frame holds the picture. It's a matter of what does it accentuate within the picture that makes it that much better? What do you love about that picture that you're trying to make other people love and acknowledge as well? When we're having a difficult time, oftentimes it's a matter of framing. We haven't framed things in the right way. So if you're framing it as this is pre-departure and we've got to be away and it's got to be separated, it's just going to be awful and we're not going to have a good time and we're just going to get through it. We're just going to put a pause on our family and we're not going to be you've already framed this for what you're for bad outcomes because you're not looking at it in a right light. And this isn't to say that you can't be real and honest with your feelings, because I wouldn't ever want to invalidate what this real experience is, that we are going to miss one another. I am going to miss the kids. I'm going to miss, being able to do all the things around the house that I love to do, fold the laundry. I'm so afraid of what's going to happen to the laundry while I'm gone.
The laundry will get done. I promise.
Get done, but by who and in what manner? What's the folding going to look like? Where's it going to go?
You won't have to worry about that.
I'm pretty sure that's why we put a couch in our bedroom, so it will just hold laundry for however long.
You guys.
So, framing.
Frame the laundry.
With kids.
Yeah.
Their story is their story. They're going to have to grow up. I look back on my story and my mom framed my story real well. I had a hip disease. I had to wear braces, had to have total hip reconstruction. But my mother said, she didn't say I was handicapped. She said I was handy-capable. It wasn't until high school that I didn't realize, that's not a word. But she framed it for me. And because she framed it that way, I didn't think that there were things that held me back. I just learned it in a different way. When I go to help the boys and frame things, sometimes it's like, hey, this is my job and this is what I get to do. And I invite them along to understand what it is that I do, who I serve, and the reason that I serve. And that's everything from the people that are sitting in front of me to the financial benefits and the security of being in the military. And to be able to say, this is what it provides you. And to be able to paint a picture of the future. Without vision, people perish. And framing helps to provide vision and context for the difficult things that we will all go through, whether it's a departure, whether it's a loss in a family, whether it's a move. You've got to frame things very well.
Well, and Marcy, I see your question about teenagers, and so I'm going to address that too. And so I just want to say you can do this framing with regardless of what age. I mean, obviously pre-verbal is a little bit more challenging, but I know our first deployment, our kids were like 3 and 5 or 2 and 5, something like that. The 2-year-old, I'm going to frame a little bit less, right? But the 5-year-old, we decided you went to Afghanistan at the time, and we found an orphanage in Afghanistan. And then we made it as a family that he was going to go serve in Afghanistan and was going to, on some level, be helping the people in Afghanistan. And we could too. And so we joined in on a mission together that we could do something together. And that framed a little bit of something that he was getting to do something over there like daddy was, right? And so as teenagers, when you're framing things, it is a little bit more into the details of this is what I do, and this is why I have to go. And this is the strategy military wise of why we have to go and do what we need to do, or the training that we have to go and do and why. Those of you who are geobaching, I've been against geobaching for a very long time, unless it's a crisis. And even recently, our kids have moved so much. We have even talked about, would we ever come to a point where geobaching would be an option for us because of needing to take care of the kids in a certain way? And so I understand that these are all very difficult and challenging decisions and things that we have to go through. But when you're framing it for your family, when you can explain on an appropriate age level, this is not only why we do what we do, but this is how we are staying connected as a family and how we can join in on doing this as a family, as a mission together. And so to answer your question, Marcy, when it comes to regression for teenagers, I will say it depends on their personality. Like you start to really see the personality characteristics come out in teenagers. But I will say I would say their emotional and social expression will regress a little bit. So sometimes you'll see kids, their grades go down a little bit just because their mind is elsewhere. They might be a little bit more stressed than usual, or, they're just mad and they just don't want to do their homework because we're going through something difficult and it's hard to focus. I can say you could also see emotionally how they handle stress. So you might be getting them a lot more irritability. I know I feel a lot more irritable. Our boys, we're not seeing it quite so much yet. I'm anticipating for our teenage boys to see it a little bit more on the other side when it gets real. And the reason for that is that the frontal cortex of your brain is not developed until 26 years old. Okay, so let me tell you what the frontal cortex does. That part of your brain that's in the front of your brain is responsible for forward thinking and future planning. Okay. It's the reason why when kids are stressed out, they think it's the end of the world today, right? Or they can't imagine how they're going to get through this test and it feels like it's never ending, right? And so they don't have really the ability to think into next week, sometimes even into the next day. Like if you've ever seen your kids, they're just melting down. And what you know is that they just need a nap, or what they need is a good night's sleep, or they need a really good meal because they haven't eaten well all day, right? And if they can just get that good night's sleep, tomorrow they're going to feel better. They don't have the ability to think into tomorrow and imagine what tomorrow is going to feel like and see themselves feeling better. So when there's that separation that's about to start, I can pretty much say that kids and teenagers, they can't imagine like that loss that they're going to feel. They can't imagine what it's going to be like for you to be gone until they get there and they go, oh, this really sucks.
Yeah. But they also cue off us as adults.
Right.
So whatever it is that we're going through, however we're responding to it, they're also taking their cue from us. They're having to react to our reaction as well as they're having to decide what is safe for them to be able to say or how they should act. So going back to the framing, just because we're trying to frame things well, doesn't mean we're not trying to be honest with what we're experiencing or what we're dealing with. Yeah. And so this gives an opportunity, it provides an opportunity for you to process your feelings in a healthy way with both the boys. And that gives them the permission to then process their feelings. And rather than everybody kind of go into their neutral corners and figuring out how are we going to survive this, they can all kind of come together and go, okay, I understand, I see from an adult perspective, a healthy way to process this and feel about it. To be able to tell a kid, hey, look, today you can be small. Today you can go up to your room and you can, listen to your music, have all the feels, and that's totally cool. I'm not going to expect you to be great every day. Okay. But in some point, maybe in a couple of days, we're going to have to kind of swoop out of that. And then we're going to go do X, Y, and Z. And then also giving them the power and the permission to make decisions for themselves that are good for them, that are healthy. Okay. So they're able to, it's a lot more negotiation that happens with teenagers than does with other kids, because teenagers are actually, they can understand abstract things, and even though they don't have forethought, they can also catastrophize really easily. Yeah. And so they need to be able to bring those catastrophic thoughts up within the family environment and to go, okay, well, I've thought those things too. And when I think those things, here's how I counteract them. Here's what I have to do in order to process them, rather than to go, no. We push the catastrophic thoughts down. Yeah. We don't think about that. If it becomes a safe place for their internal world to be able to work itself out externally, healthily, then we can actually begin to grow together and people feel seen. And feeling seen is very powerful.
So here's a couple of tips just some things that we are going to be doing. I love the fact that you guys are sharing your own stories and what you guys are doing. I love the fact that I think it was Marcy up there that was talking about that she ran her first half marathon and finished grad school during a deployment, and that you guys are sharing some of your goals and what's working for you. So keep that coming through, because that's what this tribe is about, is learning from each other. So here's a couple things that, and we're not saying that we're perfect and doing it all right. That's why we love the fact that you guys are sharing what you guys are doing and what you've learned too. But a couple of things that we are doing. Number one, I drive the boys to school in the morning. And every now and then I'll say, hey, how you doing with the fact that dad's leaving? Let's talk about it. Right. And if they're like, haven't thought about it much, then I don't press the topic. But if they're like, it's kind of hard, then I give them that room to talk about it. I think we'll also have some dinner table discussions where we talk through, like, I loved one time someone shared with me every Thursday night was gripe night while they were apart, especially. And that's really good to start beforehand too. Yep. Will and Jada Smith do, they actually call it circle of trust, where they say, like, okay, we're going to establish the circle of trust right now. So anything that you say, you cannot get in trouble for right now. And we've done that a couple times with our kids. It's actually been really effective and kind of scary as a parent to, like, what are you going to say here? But like being able to have these set aside moments in time where you don't have to be on your best behavior, and that you can just have whatever feelings you're going to have. And so I loved that one family shared that tip that really worked for me and the boys when Matt was gone one time, to be able to go, let's on Thursday night just have the permission to be negative and just get it out for one night. But the other nights we still can talk about it, but we're going to be a little bit more proactive and pull ourselves out of it. And what can we do? Another thing that was really great that I noticed that you did yesterday, we have a teenage son. And so you've started working out with him, and I could hear him working out with our son and casting vision for the deployment. Yeah. So he was in there going, let's talk about what your goals are going to be for the deployment and how you can better yourself, and that you could still check in with him while he's gone to do that. I know that that's going to fall on me to be able to hold him accountable and what's your goal. But there's that dad element, that's really helpful. And so he's basically saying, I can start that with you now, and we can still touch base with it as we go.
Oh, I told him he's holding you accountable too.
Oh, for sure.
So that's a two-way street there. Yeah.
I love that he can be, that I can have the goals, and that my kids can now be old enough to hold me accountable, even when it comes to my attitude, right? Because there's going to be days when I'm going to be feeling irritable, and my ability to let the kids go, hey mom, like, what, you seem like you're a little bit off. You seem irritable and short, and that's not something I need to be defensive at. It's a cue for me to go, how can I do a check on myself?
So being protective, can we move to that?
Yes.
Being protective so you don't sabotage this time. One thing that I have I messed up on recently, at least twice, was using the deployment as a weapon. Did that. Didn't go well. But we had an occasion where I was doing my best to parent, really trying to control a situation with my younger son, and managing my anger and my frustration. Corie, in her loving way, came by to
intervene,
quell the situation before it got extreme. And I took that, and my shame message at that point became, I'm a horrible parent. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a bad dad. She doesn't think I'm going to be able to handle this. She thinks I'm going to blow up. She thinks I'm, all those wonderful shame messages that make your life that much more complicated. And then at some point in the hour following, as we're having a very long, wonderful argument, use the deployment as a, well, I guess you're already ready to parent by yourself, yeah. And it wasn't good. So
let's be honest, I did not handle that moment either.
Yeah.
It was a bad moment for both of us.
Yeah. So we both had to come to it and go, okay, look, this is not something either one of us is choosing. And yet at the same time, we're going to use it to become better. And we're going to use it to pour into our communities and to invest in the things that we know we've been called to do, which is one of the things. It's like what we're doing tonight, fulfilling that calling. And there's our little cat. She's just so unhappy. So don't use the deployment. Don't try and create the detachment already. It's really easy. Don't use anger as a means to separate.
As if that's going to make it easier.
Right. Because just not liking another person, let's acknowledge when you love another person, you want to be near them, and it's already going to be heartbreaking to leave, but you can't just try and create anger and dissension with your spouse, your partner, in order to try and make this easier. It's not going to be easier. In fact, you're only going to make the situation that much more complicated.
Yeah. And guys, it's going to happen sometimes, right? And even if that does happen, I think what's even harder is being the bigger person that comes back and goes, that was wrong.
Yeah.
He came back and said that was wrong. I had to own up to the fact that my reaction to him saying that was not pretty and was wrong as well. And so I think that in a relationship, even with your kids, especially when you find yourself in that irritable spot, it's how you course correct.
Right.
So yes, do the best you can to be as protective as possible. And that's what we're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to just rip the Band-Aid earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because then we're losing time that we could actually stay connected.
Mm-hmm.
But it is very normal to have those big arguments before you go. Okay. Some of you guys are giving some great advice, especially for when you have kids. There's lots of ways where you can record, your spouse can record reading books. I believe USO has a way to do that. United Through Reading has a way to do that.
Oh, absolutely.
Where USO, you can record
yes.
You reading those books, especially for those of you who are not going to have connection at all, or not have that technology at all to be able to record. That voice and that repetition is very powerful. So I just want to say there's a difference between a woman's voice and a male's voice, just in pitch and in tone. And so regardless of whoever is leaving the house, that voice and that pitch and tone is going to be missing. Right. And so your kids need to hear both sides. And I know some of you guys don't have kids. And so our series is not going to be only about parenting and kids, but I do want to just encourage, since we're kind of finishing up the topic of kids and that tension, things that you can do going forward. It's very important to continue the bringing that voice and pitch into your child's life. Okay. So having those recordings are very, very powerful. One of the other things that I did early on was I invited, with Matt's permission, safe male mentors into the boy's life, right? So because there's only so much of yelling and screaming and talking that my kids would almost get tired of hearing my voice. And there was some men in the church that had whether it's Boy Scouts or whether it's there was something through the church like that, or if it's with girls and it's mom that's leaving, right? It's just having those safe people that can step in at times appropriately to bring that other voice in. But those recordings are ideal. Those are the best, where it's kind of a shared experience where they're hearing both sides, both parents, and that especially as the kids get older, that it's still okay to have two different kind of parenting styles, as long as you guys are agreeing on the basics of what we're doing as parents and the vision for your parenting, right? So it's okay that you're talking to the kids in a different way than I'm talking to the kids, and they need to hear both of those sides.
Yeah. And I think the reading program that is being mentioned here, it's phenomenal. I took advantage of it and had several soldiers take advantage of it while we were gone. I think we also get a bit addicted to quick communication, almost immediate responses with texts, with emails. And so becoming okay with delayed communication, which can allow us to be that much more protective over our relationship and what we're discussing and what we're talking about. This is easier for introverts than it is for extroverts. Extroverts really thrive on that quick communication, that back and forth, that banter, and getting feedback on what was shared or what was said. But allowing that time to, whether it's sending mail in places where you don't have good reception, if you're out on a ship or you're in an austere location where you can't have that immediacy. The thing we love about relationships is we share life together. And for me to be able to understand and watch her live her life and experience it through her eyes is meaningful to me. I would still get that even if I just read, daily journals or daily diaries of how she was experiencing life. And I may not get it immediately. I may not be receiving that information real time, but over time I can see how she evolves. So one good way is to actually keep daily journals or diaries of what you're experiencing. From a kind of a selfish perspective, I look back on some of my deployment experiences and really wish I'd have known what I did or said about some historic moments. Other people kept track of it, but I didn't. And I'd love to be able to look back and go, oh, this is what I thought, said, or did in that moment. But also I would love to be able to share that with her and also with the boys. I have to be thinking, not today, not this week. I've got to be thinking 10, 15, 20 years from now, what do I want for my boys to have as I begin to leave that legacy for them when I'm gone of, okay, this is what dad experienced and this is what dad did. And this is how he felt. And this is what
so the power of writing.
Yes.
Like if you're going to have it on digits, and that's totally fine. Just make sure it's in a safe place where you don't lose it all. Right.
Yeah.
But the power of writing, coming back to writing. And that's one of the things I would love for us to do during the deployment is get back to writing.
Oh, I am. I'm going to get a quill pen.
A quill pen.
I'm going to have a candle and a quill pen. I'm going to have a little inkwell, and first few letters are going to be sloppy. I'm just going to be honest. It's going to be all over the place. Then I'll get one of the little seals with it, like the king.
The wax seal.
I'm going to see if I can get somebody on a horse that drops it off. That just is like, whoa, horsey. Guys, I'm going back old school.
Sense of humor.
And they're going to wear tights. It's going to be.
I'm going to hurt you from a distance if you send somebody to our house to deliver mail.
No, it's going to be a singing telegram, but it's going to be with a lute. You know what that is? Yes. Lute. Google that. You should Google that sometime. It's a real thing.
Oh, I'm so thankful for a sense of humor.
Yeah.
He brings that to our world. And you know what? I'm going to miss that. I am going to miss that a lot. You're going to have to put it in your letters.
Gray day. Everything is gray.
That was a Dr. Seuss book. It's really good, by the way.
Yeah.
For your kids expressing
emotions.
Yes.
My Many Colored Days
by Dr. Seuss is fantastic for teaching your kids all those feelings. And sometimes toddlers can only say, I'm feeling gray today, or I'm feeling orange today. It can be really good. One other note on this, by the way, I know that some of you guys are concerned, and some of the tension is about, one of the questions that was actually submitted was about what's the best way for your husband to prepare his toddler for leaving. I just want to encourage you guys out there. When I went overseas and I visited some of the troops, it was around this time of year at Christmas. And I expected them to be really down. And a lot of them were having a great time on deployment, which was so good for me to see and understand why there's excitement for leaving. Mm-hmm. But some of them were they were excited. And then they kind of went into this, but I'm missing out on my daughter's life or my toddler, or I'm missing these little key things. And they were worried about are they going to forget me? Or how do you like make sense of this for a small child? And I just want to, this is what I said to them. It was actually on a ship out in the Persian Gulf where I was having this conversation in the DFAC of the ship.
They would call it DFAC.
What is it? Not, I forgot it, what it is now. Anyways,
really
Navy,
nice.
Marcy, you're on the Navy, I think. So let me,
What is the Navy? What is the dining facility on a naval ship called?
As soon as she
and
writes
I said
it,
ship, I didn't say boat. So I should get something.
Mess hall.
Mess hall.
Yes,
galley.
thank you. Galley. Okay.
There we go.
So I'm so glad you guys
All
are
right.
paying attention
The
still.
galley.
This is the test. Galley is better. Okay. This is where I'm sitting. I was in the galley. I was having a conversation with these two guys. And here's what I told them. I said, you know what? Our kids were 5 and 2 for the first deployment. The second deployment, they were a couple years older than that. So we're talking about as close to 8 years old was our oldest. And now they're 16 and 13, and they do not remember the deployment. They do not. And that doesn't mean that they don't remember.
I mean, I was home a lot. I
absent.
was home otherwise.
But we did all of those recordings. We did like the Skype calls at the time. We did where they could hear your voice. You read through like a chapter book for them at the time. So each night we could play a chapter. Like we did some of those things. They don't look back on that time as like a time when their lives were destroyed, or that they are fully aware that Matt was present in their life somehow throughout that time. And most of these kids, their memories are going to be of like the pictures that you share. Like all the time, our teenagers are like, can we see some of our pictures from when we were like smaller? And that's how their memories stir up. Like, oh yeah, I remember that playground, or, oh yeah, I remember when we played that game. And it's because we showed them a video of them playing that game. Right. So I just want to encourage you guys that maybe we need to be careful, especially I'm just going to speak to the women here for a second. We need to be careful to not take our brain, our adult brain, and like superimpose it into our child's head as if they're feeling all the things that we're feeling. We're not only, trying to imagine what it's going to be like with them being gone, which by the way, I don't think anybody can really process what it's like to be gone for any length of time like that, and anticipate what you're going to go through. That's hard enough as an adult, but we need to remember our kids aren't feeling the same things. They're not thinking the same things. And we can be careful to not ask leading questions and like implant worries, implant concerns, implant things that they may not even be thinking yet. Right. So just remember that, I had mentoring spouses that said this to me. I'm going to say it to you. Your kids are going to be okay. Your kid, and I have to have somebody still saying that to me, but your kids are going to be okay. It's do the best that you can, mentor them through this, frame it as best as you can, make a mission for yourselves, get excited about something. We'll be covering that in November. Get excited about something together, but about face, just like your serving spouse is going on that mission about face and getting excited. We need to get excited with our kids about something too. And that's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember the adventures you took them on, the conversations that were really hard, those nights when they were scared and you made room for them, those nights when you were like, no, now you have to go back into your own bed. We got to push through it. They're going to remember all of those growth moments as a good thing.
The nights when you were like, nope, cereal.
Yep. Let me just tell you, that was another mentor said to me on some of those really, really challenging nights. You don't have to be a perfect parent every night. And there's no such thing as being both mom and dad at the same time.
No,
there just isn't. There just isn't. So let's cover in the time that we have left with you guys. Let's cover some of the questions that you guys have submitted. If we did not see your question in the chat, you guys have been chatting so well throughout the evening. I'm sure I missed something. And Laura, be sure to be tracking if I'm missing something too, but I'm just going to go through some of the questions that have come up, and then we'll kind of wrap up tonight with a few, if there's anything else that we're going to proactively try to do before he goes, on how we can stay connected as a family, and maybe set the stage a little bit for maybe what we would like to try to do while you're gone to stay connected. And then we'll be revisiting that throughout the series. So some of this we kind of have already covered a little bit. How can we make anything else on this, Matt? How can we make the serving spouse more comfortable when they have guilt? Is there anything else that you would say about that? Especially considering everybody expresses it in different ways.
they have guilt for leaving.
That's the way I'm reading it. And you guys can correct me if you want him to be more specific on that. And this is a really good time to ask him questions. People are all the time like,
how about this? I'd like to reframe it.
mm-hmm.
Let's not work at making the service member feel more comfortable, but let's work at maybe even just understanding it,
Mm-hmm.
hearing it, and allowing for it to kind of be there and to assist them in processing it. Because it's not your responsibility to make me feel something.
Yeah.
And so I need to take ownership, but I've also got to process, what do I feel guilty for?
Mm-hmm.
And as I begin to process that out loud,
like they feel bad that they're leaving.
Yeah, I mean, you feel bad that you're leaving. But here's the thing, you're split. You feel bad that you're leaving, but you're also looking at it going, wow, for this next amount of time, I don't have to decide what's for dinner. And that's great. I'm so excited to just show up between 5 and 6 and I get a meal and then I leave, or I'm going to get some great gym time. So you there's the guilt of leaving. And then there's also the guilt of, this is going to be a little bit easier for me in some ways.
Yeah.
So there's the ability to
is there
just
guilt on
process. That? Nope.
No guilt at all.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry.
No guilt that
I'm sorry.
I'm not going to have that.
Sorry. So sorry. This is how not to do it. So, I just don't think that's, I mean, the service member needs to process that and to understand it. But so much of life is just living in the tension of an uncomfortable feeling and to be okay with that. I mean, we can't take all uncomfortable feelings away. We can't try and only have a life of comfortability. We're going to, even just trying to go get groceries and then one person's not wearing their mask and you just gotta live with it.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I'm hearing you say, and I see these questions that are coming in, they're great. And I'm going to answer them. One of the things that I'm hearing you say is, on one hand, I don't need to necessarily manage your feelings,
right?
That both of us need to be able to own our feelings and express them in a way that's healthy as best as we can. And that I'm also kind of the takeaway for me tonight is that I need to definitely not expect for you to be on that white horse as if like you shouldn't have feelings at all, but that it's also okay for you to have those feelings because he is leaving.
And here's the thing, it goes back to a phrase, make it count. Yeah. Look, if I feel guilty about leaving, then I'm going to make that much more. I'm going to make it count
towards
to everything. I mean, that's why I go all in towards, self-improvement on a deployment as much as possible. Whether that is professionally, that is definitely professionally, that's definitely personally, that's making every moment, seizing every moment and making it count. So if I feel guilty about being gone, I should use that to spur me on into productivity.
Well, and we also have used that phrase specifically for, if we have to spend this time apart, then we're not going to waste this time either. We're going to make it count for our relationship. Like, I'm not going to wait until he gets home to work on our relationship again. Like, making it count also applies to how are we engaging this and maybe working on some areas of our life that are really difficult for us to work on, or maybe we haven't had the time to work on, or we've kind of been setting it off to the side for a little bit. So there's going to be some areas that are maybe easier areas of growth, and also maybe taking a look at some of those, they're more challenging to grow in, but it needs to count if we're going to spend this time apart. And so one of the things we talked about was we were going to work on like going back to that writing, like just kind of that verbal expression that especially when your kids are older, you're like, I'm a taxi driver all day and we're rushing around and like passing like ships in the night. And so just kind of slowing down our conversation a little bit and writing to each other and working on that kind of communication is one of the things we said, we could use this time to work on that. So I think you answered that great. Okay,
sure. Thanks.
One of the questions is, which I know exactly how this feels, how do you deal with things when there's been so much tension and build up and then the date changes and then you have to go through it all over again? So, I mean, we are so used to like PCS date changes.
We have a phrase, it can all change in a lunch hour.
We do.
And so it is hard to embrace in your low on adaptability.
I am.
Which is fascinating. that you've survived this long
I
in this
know.
community.
Big changes really stress me out. So those of you guys who asked that question or were thinking about that, that kind of happened with us, where he was going to leave on one date, and I had organized my calendar where I'd have some time off with him before he left, and then I would have some time off after he left to kind of like figure out my routine, kind of give myself a couple days to be with the kids or whatever. And then the date changed, and now he's leaving like when I'm going to be back at work, and I can't change a few things. And so there's going to be some stress with that. And there's a lot of adaptability of like, I'm going to do the best that I can through that. And so it is really, really stressful. It's very stressful to have to go through it all again. And I think number one, I would just say to acknowledge that that's a big deal, acknowledge that that's rocking our world just a little bit, and that that's not the way that we would have handled it. It does throw everybody off. It delays things. I mean, we've kind of all been going through that in different ways with COVID, even this year, of like, we really were ready for it to end and then it didn't. We were really ready for school to start and then it was delayed. And we've been through that a lot this year. So maybe lowering the expectations and giving ourselves a little bit of grace that we may not have a lot of reserve to pull from. Yeah. So when that happens, like, just anticipate, at least I'm having to anticipate that, all right, I'm not handling that great, but I'm just going to do the best that I can to communicate that to you, and then work through it together.
So I think
casting vision makes a huge difference in my life, when you're like, it's okay, here's what we're going to do,
which is what I'm about to do right now.
Go.
So if it gets pushed to the right and it's like 2 months later, then pause. What did you do? What were the 2 months leading to the original date? And would you have changed anything? How differently would you act? And you pause, put a pin in it and go, okay, all right, cool. Last 2 months, X, Y, and Z, let's we would say AAR this. And was there anything that we wish we would have changed? Like in the way that we acted? Did we put too much stress on ourselves? Were we too tense about it? Were we too looking forward to it? Were we like way too intense? Were we way too distant? Okay, now we get a golden do-over. We get 2 more months to kind of do it all over again and see if there's anything we would change. If it gets pushed to the left and you're like, oh no, this is sooner.
A lot of people say it's better.
Yeah. And you're like, all right, cool. Rip the Band-Aid. Let's go. Let's get it over with. Pack the bags.
Then we can cast vision on the other side.
Yeah.
We can go, all right, we're going to make it count. Now we can get our bearings, which is what we're going to cover in November. So that's how I would answer that.
Yeah.
Real quick answer to the question about if you're looking for a counselor or therapist, where to begin. I'm going to try to answer this really quickly, because I know I'm going to probably address this throughout the series. So this is what I would say on that. Number one, TRICARE is for beneficiaries. So for spouses and dependents, you do not need a referral from your primary care manager to go get counseling. All right. If you're a service member, you need a referral to get outside to a TRICARE provider. But I will say the TRICARE sites of the list of counselors are very sparse. And the reason for that is TRICARE doesn't pay really well. And so a lot of counselors, including myself, have gone out of network. That doesn't mean you necessarily pay more. It just means I've made an agreement with TRICARE that's different. And so it just means that TRICARE is not advertising where my office is to you. I have to do that advertising to you myself. So that means it's still covered. I'm going to, a lot of out of network still file the claims for you. It's just like if they were in network. So my favorite place, because I'm hugely passionate about this topic in particular, is I created the Life Giver directory. It's on my website. It is a directory full of clinicians globally. We have over 200 clinicians already. Most of them are military spouses or veterans themselves that are qualified and are culturally competent to work with you. So you can look in the Life Giver directory. Some of them are private pay, some of them are out of network, some of them are TRICARE, but you can specifically put in the search box exactly what you're looking for. That's a great place for you to go and search the Life Giver directory. You can go to the TRICARE websites. Military OneSource is an okay place for you to go as well. I will say you get limited number of sessions, and it can't be for things that are moderate to severe issues that are going on.
But there are also caveat on that with Military One Source, they offer a whole lot more programs than just counseling.
Absolutely.
And especially when we're talking about personal development during this process. So
there's so many things that they actually provide that I didn't even know about. So I know that's kind of the classic answer is like Military One Source, right? But there are some, did you know that they actually will help you with your fitness and nutrition goals? There's a coach that will help you with that. So there's parenting advice there too. The USO also has a whole bunch of programs. They have their coffee connections. There's Brittany that's doing Discovering Your Spark to help you find your purpose and identity. Those of you who are trying to figure out how do I about face and work on myself, that's a really great thing for you to do as well. So think about it as a holistic approach. Don't be afraid to get that counseling, and don't worry about that stigma of confidentiality. It's not going to ruin your service member's career, and it's confidential. I am a TRICARE provider. The only thing that I can report is abuse and neglect, and every clinician has to do that. And I'm not going to report that to a commander. Okay. I'm going to report that to whoever I need to in order to keep you guys safe. And I'm going to have a conversation with you about it. I'm not going to go behind your back. Okay. So other questions before we run out of time, I want to make sure that we get into, just know and we can maybe talk about this in a future series of, if you want me to break down a little bit better the mental health side of things and where to go and what to look for, we can do that maybe in another series. November might be a good chance to do that when I'm feeling all my feelings. A couple of other questions that came in. Let's see. Is it normal? This kind of gets, let me make sure there's not one that's better suited for November.
Hold that up because I'm looking at the top of your
sorry
head.
about that.
And it's lovely. I mean, fine.
Okay. We covered the toddler one. Let's see if somebody wrote in that they've had many, many deployments. How do you navigate the new stress of COVID and being a single mom trying to do this separate? Here's what I want to say. Those of you who are experiencing family apart, again, tonight is more so about the tension before you go, but I do just want to really quickly encourage those of you who are already apart right now, that everybody is kind of not doing awesome right now, everybody. And so everybody's coping skills are kind of been maxed out. And I just want to validate those of you who are really struggling right now to reach out and get the help that you need. I can't tell you how many spouses, I'm not taking new clients right now, but I can't tell you how many I've had that have reached out that just need the support during this year, that just need a counselor to vent to, that just need a place to go. I'm having a really rough time. I'm feeling isolated with my newborn, and I don't have my support network established yet, or I'm struggling with this tension before I go. How do I get all of my ugly stuff out first? And then how do I find better words to take to my marriage? There's lots of really great things that you can do for counseling to help you guys find that support that you need.
And I would also say, be incredibly graceful with yourself and your expectations on yourself. There are different seasons. Some seasons you're really just surviving. You don't feel like you're thriving. You're just doing kind of the day-to-day thing. And so you need to do those key things that give you a little bit of a rhythm and a pattern to life that help you know that days are passing and changing. And with young kids, that can kind of be difficult. The second thing is always be aware of what you're allowing into your mind, what you're processing, and whether that is negativity that can be found through many different talking heads on any given station, or whether that is subject matter or media that's going to make you feel less than, or like you're missing out, or anything that leaves you with a negative feeling. So just be aware of what you're bringing in and kind of how you're populating your mind, and also what you're expecting of yourself. So be graceful and be generous to yourself, and take it. Sometimes you're just taking it one day at a time, as you just kind of put one foot in front of the other, walking out of the difficult season that we're all in.
So there's a couple more that I want to make sure that we get to. Okay, so I see, let's see. Shawnee says, I'm on session on counseling in a sense of how to make it productive. I think sometimes it's hard to figure out which foot to start with. So I'm just going to say I always encourage my clients, is even those that I'm referring out to somebody else, when I'm saying, hey, when you go see that clinician, the best thing that you can do is go, just like in a relationship, right? We're teaching you guys how to be assertive and actually ask for what you need and be very clear, right? So going into even counseling, the same way that we're encouraging you to go to your marriage and say, here's what I need from counseling. Here's what I'm actually looking for from you. I usually go to a counselor about every other assignment. I'll try to find a counselor to go to just to do healthy checkups for me. And I remember I went into one counselor that during that season of my life, I just needed like a maternal, grandmotherly kind of support. And I went into that first session and I said, you know what I think that I need is I really just need you to let me come in and get all of my stuff out, all the stress that I'm going through, maybe all the ugly stuff out there. And then I need your mentoring. I need you to put that mentoring hat on and just tell me whether I'm crazy or tell me whether I can like make some improvements. And I need you to challenge me. I asked her specifically, if there's something, don't like wait for me to like figure it out by myself. If you need to challenge me, I'm welcoming that. And that set the tone for our relationship. There's been other counselors that we've gone to that we were like, we just need to like have a place to just say a bunch of stuff out loud. And you may not even need to be in the room, right? So just go in there and be able to, and then course correct as you need to. Go in there and say, okay, now I think I'm done with that. Now I need this, right? So again, this is all about finding your place in the middle of that spectrum and being as balanced as you can to be honest and open, but also ask for what you need. So there's a couple of other questions that they're giving me a couple of extra minutes before they come in and close out that I want to get to before we close out tonight. Again, this is a monthly series, so we're going to address these more if we don't answer them tonight. One of them is it normal to not want to see pictures or things that remind you of your loved ones so that you're not constantly thinking of them? So again, I would answer this with kind of on the extreme spectrum thing, right? Again, I'm finding yourself as much as possible in the middle. It's very normal when you're spending time apart to have these little things that like he'll leave around the house and I won't know until after he's gone, right? There's going to be something that he leaves behind that I'm like, I'm just not going to touch that. It's going to stay there for the whole duration of while he's gone. And other people that come into the house, like for the first deployment, it was a boot that he left behind that I used as a doorstop. Whenever I was working out in the garage. And I
didn't
remember
intentionally leave it behind.
It was just
I
an
didn't
extra
need
pair.
it, but it was there.
For other people, some people said it was a random granola bar wrapper that somebody left that somebody else thought was trash, and they about lost their mind when somebody threw it away because you find yourself attached to things, right? And so there is some level of that that's healthy. Like, do I need to like have him like never wash any of the dirty socks that are left over? No, right? So it's like, where do we find, like, he's like, are you going to do laundry?
I'm not the one with a laundry problem here. I'm not. Let's just be honest.
I'm using it as an example, but maybe just think about that on the extreme. In some ways, and everybody lands in a different place on the spectrum, right? Of that like extreme, how much do you need to stay connected? Some of you need the practice of looking at that and not allowing too much disconnect to happen, right? Allowing yourself to actually look at that photo and allow those feelings to come up. We'll get into intimacy later, but there is a thing that's called skin hunger, that when you have not had that physical contact of even just appropriate hugs from your spouse, that your skin will start to crawl. And so it's known that for women, your libidos will go down the longer it's been since you've had sex. And then for men, it's the longer that you've gone without it, that desire increases. And so we're not going to get into that as much tonight, but for those of you who are allowing too much disconnect to be there, it is going to be important for you to really focus on that picture and allow yourself to miss that person. But if you're on the other extreme and you're just really getting stuck there, we need to sometimes put it down and go do other things that are productive and go after those goals. Okay. All right. Last question. And then we're wrapping it up because Laura is coming in now.
No, I think that was the last question.
Do you think
Laura's
it is?
looking at you.
She's
like, it's time to
shut
go.
it down.
Shut it down.
I'll just wrap it up with this, and we won't go into answering it extensively, but I think it's a good way to wrap up. And it's why I saved it for last, Laura. And that is because some people were asking whether they're a new couple or whether they're going into a geobatch situation. What are those tips for being able to stay connected? And so I think as a way to just kind of close up, I think that number one, I would just say, and this is what we're going to try to do, is have a common goal that you're working on, no matter how long you've been married and no matter how long the separation is going to be. Have a common goal that you work on together, whether it's a project or a goal that you're doing individually and together. And number two, communicate and do your best that you can to check in as you go.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd add?
Nope.
We'll expand on that more in the series, which is why I'm so excited that this is a series that we will come back to. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for how interactive you guys were, for the questions that you guys submitted. There's going to be more as we go along. I hope you guys had a really good time, and I hope that it was relevant. And I hope that at least us opening up gives you a little bit more permission to maybe feel like your feelings are validated too, and that it meant something for you tonight.
Absolutely. No, we had so many great conversations in the chat box, people really opening up. And I think for all of us, we really want to thank our participants for sharing your stories with us and being authentic and real with us, just like Corie and Matt were with you. Corie, I know that obviously you're getting ready to go through this big separation. Is there a way that we can catch up with you on social media if we want to stay in touch before the next event happens?
Yeah, so my social media handles on all the social media, so Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are all at Corie LPC. I think we put that in the chat box. LPC stands for Licensed Professional Counselor. So you can find me on any of those platforms there. We obviously will watch for OPSEC and to get Matt launched and wherever he's going. And so he will chime back in one of our future series where you'll see him pop back up. But I will definitely be able to share a little bit of what I'm going through over social media, or if you want to reach out and follow me there.
Perfect. Thank you. And just so that everyone has a chance to see, we are actually going to be putting up a slide momentarily with the Life Giver website that Corie and Matt referred to. It has so many great recommendations for resources. And it also has a lot of great podcast ideas and just some tutorials, just books to check out. So I highly recommend going there. And it also gives that counselor directory that Corie was mentioning earlier that is a great resource for everyone on this call to check out. So I wanted to make sure that we announce our next events. We do have some scheduled in November. Tuesday, November 17th, 8 p.m. Eastern time, so same time as tonight, or in the morning for those of us calling from the Pacific region. And then Wednesday, November 18th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. You can find out all of that information on our USO website. We have a website dedicated to the series now, which is really exciting. That website, which Liz just put in the chat box, the registration links. And then we have a website where this recording will be placed online. So you can go back and watch it as many times as you want. And we will also be updating the worksheet that Corie sent out. She and Matt are going to make some edits to it, kind of based on the organic conversation that happened today. And we'll get that up there as well. Just in closing, Corie, Matt, we are thinking about you guys and your family. Know that you're in our hearts, and we are looking forward to following along in your journey. We appreciate your authenticity as always. And thank you for starting this new series with us. We're excited to see where it goes, and we're excited to learn more about how we can stay connected despite the distance.
Thank you, Laura. And I did forget to mention, for those of you guys who are going through a deployment, I know a lot of pre-deployment questions when it comes to like getting those power of attorneys together, and that's some of that tension too. I just want to give a shout out to Lizanne Lightfoot, who has a deployment masterclass that you can find some of those nitty gritty practical things of how do I get my paperwork in order and all of that. She has a great masterclass. And I actually did one of the talks with Lizanne where I dive a little bit deeper into the tension before you go, as far as like, how do you manage some of those conversations? So that's also another really great resource that I did not get to mention until now, but we'll cover that. And they just put it there in the chat as well. So I want to make sure that I give a shout out to all the hard work that she did to make that. But I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in November. Please register for that event. It's not going to be a super sappy, sad event. Okay. So I really want you guys to know it's going to be a place where we really do answer that question. How do we about face and really set those goals and have a mission and kind of pick ourselves up? So I hope you guys will join us.
Absolutely. On behalf of the USO, Corie, Matt, thank you for sharing your evening with us. And we hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of their day, whatever time that is. The last slide we'll put up is actually going to be, this is the web link to where you can find today's recording and sign up for the next events too. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.